Good evening. Good evening. I'm hearing a feedback. You see, I am using new technology tonight, guys, and I am excited to be here. My name is Dr. Angel Kreitz, and this is Wisdom Talk. I thought we would go with some thoughts on giving tonight with everything that's happening. Thank you for joining me live on Facebook and on YouTube tonight. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see all of your comments, but I would love it if you were to join me and let me know where you're watching from. Especially if you're overseas, I love it when foreign countries join me. Is everyone seeing me okay? I'm getting feedback that you can't see me, but that doesn't seem. Oh, there I am. Okay, great. We're all copacetic. Well, thank you so much for joining me. But tonight I thought, I have been really burdened about the conversation within Christendom about tithing and sowing seed and the confusion that there is surrounding all of that. And I just wanted to give you my thoughts on it. And give you a perspective that I've had for years. My mentors are Dr. Mike Murdoch and Dr. Paul Kreitz, who was my husband for many years. And I learned quite a bit about that. But, let's see who's here. Oh, Daniel Tessner, thank you for watching all the way from Greenwood, South Carolina. Good evening, sir. Good evening. Jeff Patzer, I would agree with that. Jeff, you're local. We see each other quite a bit. You come to the Wisdom House on Sundays, and you're right. Giving is extremely important. It's extremely important. I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much coming in from Northeast Florida. As more people join us and as more people start watching us, we'll take a break and greet some folks. But I just wanted to go on ahead and get started here tonight with my thoughts on giving. And so many of you know my personal testimony. When I caught the revelation of giving, I really caught it. I really understood. I understood the assignment. I had a remarkable experience, and many of you have heard it, but I'm going to tell you once again because I think it's an important testimony. It's an inspiring testimony, and it's really just different from anything I've ever heard. But back in 97, something happened within our family. We had to relocate. My then husband had lost his job for again, and we had to relocate. And I had my second child with me, and we had to move into an apartment, and was not able to bring any of our things with us. And my child slept in a grocery cart instead of a crib. It was, of course, sanitized, and I put a lot of mattress padding in it and everything. But we were afflicted with this poverty mindset. Our family was afflicted with this poverty mindset, and eventually we were evicted from that apartment due to non-payment. Jobs just, for whatever reason, would not work out. Company closure, unemployed, let go because of layoffs. All kinds of things happened to us. And ultimately, I decided that, I don't want to keep getting evicted from place to place to place. So I'm going to buy a used double wide home and mobile home. And so I did. I bought a 1973 Freedom Mobile Home and found a great lot behind a church there in Tampa, Florida, where we lived at the time. When it was new to us, it was great. It had plenty of room. And with the addition of more children, we adopted a child who desperately needed a safe home. I had a stepchild, and then I had my two older children. And then in the home, I had two more children. So we had 6 children in this double wide mobile home. And at least we were there and we were stable as a family. But as the mobile home began to break, things need to be maintained. Things need to be kept up. We couldn't quite grasp our handle on our financial situation. And so my then husband going from job to job to job, and with me having children at home and not being able to afford preschool for various children, we stayed in that mobile home for quite a few years, which lost power in half of the mobile home. We didn't understand electricity and how to rewire. We couldn't afford an electrician. We didn't have a working stove anymore. And now, not because of the stove, it was because the side of the trailer that didn't have electricity didn't have that, had or contained the stove. And so we couldn't really make one work over there with extension cords or anything. And the home started swarming with termites. Here in Florida, termites are a big problem. And so we were living in poverty. Now, the reason why I paint such a picture for you is because a lot of people think I'm against people living in mobile homes. I'm just not. I don't believe it's God's best for you to live in the conditions that we lived in. And like I said, it was before we had the revelation of prosperity, of what God really wants for you, of what God really has for you. And so during that time in my life, I started getting debilitating headaches called cluster migraines. And these migraines last for about 30 to 60 days. And they're very debilitating, very difficult. You can't really work with them. And so we had to go to food banks just to feed the family. And then I heard a message that changed my life. I was going to a local church. I was really passionately in love with Jesus. I had a great relationship with the person of Jesus. I fell in love with him from day one. Always prayed, always read my Bible, always valued his words through all of this. But I never knew that God had a plan for me to prosper and not remain in poverty, that he had set in place certain principles that we could learn and practice while we're here on earth. And I want to talk to you about those things today. So at the church, we received this revelation of sowing and reaping. Luke 6:38 says, "Give, and it'll be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that you use it, shall be measured to you again." It seems kind of backwards to me for someone to be told in that situation to give, but then with the promise of it will be given back to you. And so when I heard that verse, I thought to myself, do I even have anything to give? Do I have anything to give? And so I had a little savings, a very small amount. And so I put that in the offering. And then that's when an opportunity opened to my family. We'd met Dr. Paul Kreitz in a church as a special guest speaker. And we absolutely wanted to be a part of his ministry. We were in no position to relocate or move to be under his ministry or to go to his church or to even afford the university that he had at the time. And I knew I really wanted to finish my college degree. And so I really prayed about this. And as we continued to go to that church that shared with me the revelation of giving, God just kept pulling on me to give more, to give more. And so what I did was I acted a little outside of what most people would think was sane. I started selling everything that wasn't nailed down. I sold my furniture, I sold toys, I sold video games, I sold CDs, I sold videos. I sold everything that wasn't nailed down that was of value. And I, of course, did not sell my children's beds or my bed. I had some sense to me, but all I knew is that I was desperate to get this going, to actually understand what would happen if I gave to God. And I was already in love with Christ. So I already knew that it was going toward something that I loved and I wanted to invest in already. There was no manipulation for me. There was no fear that if I didn't tithe or if I didn't give offerings, that I would go to hell. There was none of that for me. There was no manipulation of guilt, like if I don't give, I'm robbing God. None of that occurred to me. It only occurred to me that he wanted what was best for me, and I had to act in faith. God is very much a you first kind of God. And so when I activate my faith, it releases what is in his hand. When I activate my faith, it releases what is in his hand. Now, I truly believe that. I wholeheartedly have lived that. And so what happened was when I sold the various furniture and the various things that I did, I brought that offering to the church. And I was very happy to have done it. I was very excited to have done that. And I was expecting God to do something because I know that God never lets faith go unanswered, right? And so and so I went home after that church service feeling great, and I was praying, and God said, "You know what? What else? I have big plans for you. What else?" And I thought, God, I don't really have that much more, but I do have a jewelry box that's 3 feet tall and full of jewelry my mom passed on to me of things that she had collected over the years. And of other jewelry that I'd obtained in my lifetime. You know, us ladies, we always seem to collect a pretty decent amount of jewelry. And a lot of it was good. I weeded out the costume jewelry, and I just put the real stuff in the box. And I took it to the church because they had at the time a little shop in their church full of jewelry that people placed in the offering. And so that's what I did. I took my jewelry box down, and the staff members who were there at the time received it and were very grateful. And I came away feeling a little empty. It wasn't that emotional high, that emotional joy that I felt when I did that. Actually, I felt kind of nervous about the whole thing. But I said, God, I have a word from you. I believe you. I believe you. And so I just kept telling him, I believe in you. I know you're going to turn our situation around because I activated my faith. I did what you told me to. I walked in obedience, Father. And I kept saying that to myself and encouraging myself. And so a couple of weeks went by and nothing happened. Nothing happened. In fact, we got worse. I decided to act out in faith and putting my mobile home up for sale so that I could move to where Dr. Paul Kreitz was and be in his ministry. Our family could. And so we put our mobile home up for sale. We ran an ad in the local newspaper to sell it. But the day that the ad came out, my phone was disconnected. And I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated that I took the cord out of the wall and I threw the phone down on the floor. And my oldest daughter, being 12 at the time and being very conscientious and sweet, went over and said, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, Mama." And she put the phone back on the table where it was and hung the receiver up. 24 hours later, and trust me, if I were listening to me tell this story, I would not believe me. I would be a little skeptical, but I promise it happened. 24 hours later, that phone rang. And without even thinking, I picked it up and I said, "Hello." And on the other end of the line was a lady who wanted to buy my mobile home. Now, I was so frustrated at this point. I just told her everything that might be wrong with it. I said, "Listen, I don't want to, I have to live with myself. I have to live with myself when I sell you this mobile home. We're asking this amount for it. It's got termites swarming. Half the electricity doesn't work. It needs to be replaced. The floor needs to be replaced in a couple of places. There's no working stove. It's rough." And you know what she said to me? "That's okay. My brother's in construction. I'll pay you what you're asking. Can I write you a check?" I cannot tell you. I cannot even explain to you what I felt at that moment. That God would send somebody, that they would call a phone that had been disconnected and unplugged, and he would put the call through anyway. And that they would buy it for my asking price, cash. That opened the door for my entire world to be completely different. It happened like that, but it didn't happen like that. It took some time. It took some time. I was so blessed. I got that kingdom principle. To have a full, balanced walk, you must have a close relationship with the person of Jesus, but you also must walk in the principles of Jesus. The person of Jesus is who you have a relationship with. That's the grace part. That's what secures your eternal soul. But the principles is what brings kingdom down to here. Let me explain. A principle is a truth or a law of God that can never be changed. It can never be changed. A principle is a law set, like many religions will say it's the law of the universe. It's something that happens. It's not an emotional thing. You either practice the principle or you don't, to reap the reward or not. It's not something you should feel bad over. If you're not there and practicing the principle, don't practice the principle, but you're not going to get the reward. Having a relationship with the person of Jesus is very important. It's vital. You must fall in love with Jesus. The person of Jesus will get you to heaven, but the principles of Jesus will bring heaven here to you while you're still on earth. The person of Jesus brings you peace, but the principles of Jesus brings you prosperity. The person of Jesus means you'll reign in the future, right? But the principles of Jesus means you rule in the present. You're given dominion. The person of Jesus shows you how to enter into his presence, but the principles teach you to operate in protocol. To have a full balanced kingdom walk, I'm going to say it again, you must have a close relationship with Jesus. But you also must walk in the principles of Jesus. And that's where a lot of us are missing it. Just like, if you go to school and you earn D's, you still pass. But it's the people who earn A's that actually get the opportunities, right? How about if you're chosen or you're selected to be on a professional basketball team? That's an amazing accomplishment. You have to work hard to get there, right? And being on a basketball team makes you rich. But if you're the person who has learned to purchase or to own the basketball team, you've learned the principles behind wealth, and you've owned the basketball team, it doesn't make you rich, it makes you wealthy. That's the difference. There's a richer side to Christianity. Knowing the person of Jesus is paradise. It's wonderful. Having a relationship with him, if you never got any further than that, it's marvelous. But understanding and practicing the principles of Jesus, that's where that rich relationship comes from. That's where you look at a Christian leader and you think, oh, I want to be like that. Is because we're practicing the principles of Jesus. There are principles in place that take you to the next level in whatever you want to do. Not just Christianity, but practical principles that are just a part of life that will take you to the next level of whatever you want to do. I want to go on ahead and read some of these comments now. We're going to take a little break. I'm going to read some of these comments and hear your feedback. I'm so excited about this new program because I get to share the comments with you. Okay, so we have La Minute de Finances, I think. La Minute I don't know how to pronounce it, but he says, what a beautiful story. Thank you. Thank you so much. It is a beautiful story. God's story in my life has always been really amazing. Ellen, my good friend from Orlando, God bless you. Thank you for joining me tonight. Praise God for this wonderful testimony. Amen. How beautiful is God? God is so wonderful. He really is. Nobody is perfect. I'm thankful God is getting things taught. Yes. Amen. That's right. That's right. No one's perfect. I've misspoken before. I've taught the wrong thing. I remember Paul, who was my previous husband. He was a marvelous person, excellent mentor. He wrote 13 books. And I remember having a conversation with him, and he said, there are just some things in my books that I wish I could go back and rewrite. And he remembers that we develop over the years and we have a stronger understanding. But in this teaching, I know I've lived it. And Ellen again says, yes, giving in faith and joyfully opens such a great, wonderful mentality and manifests a joyful heart. I think so. But I am so blessed that you guys are here with me tonight. I'm going to finish my teaching because I think it's important that we understand this incredible principle of giving. These are my thoughts on giving tonight, and I wanted to also ask you to sign up for the newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter at mypurposeintl.com. And the reason I want you to do that is because this broadcast is being put on YouTube as we speak, and that newsletter will have a link in it so that you'll always be able to access this information. You know, the information unretrievable is unusable. And so I want you to always be able to access this if you're sharing with your friends or if you're blessing someone else. And this is important. But let's get back to talking about the three main principles of Jesus. There are three main principles of Jesus. We talked about having a relationship with the person of Jesus and practicing the principles. And there are three main principles of Jesus. The three main principles are the law of agreement, where two or three are gathered in my name, there's agreement. Also, the law of honor. The law of honor, which opens the doors for access. Access is important. Relationships are important. Knowing who to honor, knowing how to discern who to honor. That's very important, vital. But the one we're talking about tonight is the law of sowing and reaping. The law of sowing and reaping. You see, when you as a Christian leader follow the principles of Jesus, there are so many people who are hungry to have what you have. Everyone wants to have what you have. When you share what you know, though, what got you to that place, they don't want to do that work. Many people don't want to do it. They become closed off. Well, I tell you tonight, I'm not interested in creating followers. I'm not interested in people who want what I have. I want to create leaders. That's always been the goal of Purpose International. That's always been the calling on my life, is to create leaders. Leaders want to know what other leaders know. They want to walk in the footsteps. They want to practice those principles, and they want to hear and see what God will do for them personally. There is grace in abundance. And once you believe in Jesus, you experience grace. Eternity is settled for you. Your eternal soul will one day be with the Lord simply because you have a relationship with Jesus. But what about our prayer when it says in Matthew 6:10? Remember, Jesus taught us to pray. In Matthew 6:10, that's part of the Lord's Prayer. It says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Do we really mean that? Do we want to bring heaven here down to earth? Do we want to walk in the kingdom principles in order to experience kingdom already, right now? Galatians 6:7 says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that will he also reap." I have my children's pastors, Pastor Alden Tinsley and Pastor Debbie Tinsley. They taught me that verse when I was just a very little girl. I didn't understand it. I didn't put it together, but I knew that verse. Galatians 6:7. That is the principle of sowing and reaping. Whatever a man sows, that's what he's going to reap. If you sow something negative, you're going to get that back. If you sow something positive, if you sow time, you can't plant a tomato seed in the ground and expect squash. It's just not going to happen. Just not going to happen. Sowing seed is extremely important if you want to break the back of poverty in your life. This principle is not meant to be a hardship on you. It's not meant to be a burden. You shouldn't ever give an offering under manipulation. Giving tithe and giving offering is not because you feel guilty, because he's done so much for you, you want to give back. That's not right. Tithing and giving offering is not because you want to make sure you're going to go to heaven. That's not right. But giving tithe and giving offering is done as a sign of your faith. Do you believe that God truly will take care of you? You know, he dresses the lilies of the field. He takes care of the sparrows. Will he take care of you? It's a sign that you believe, and it gets God's attention. Have you ever heard the phrase, if you want to see what someone truly loves, all you have to do is glance at their bank statement? You know, we prioritize things we love with our money. We are happy to spend our money on things that give us pleasure. I'm happy to spend my money on things that give me pleasure. We all do it. Of course we do. We invest our money in the things that we love, and often we receive a return on our investment, whether it's joy, whether it's seeing the look on your spouse's face after buying them a gift, whether it's experiencing a delicious meal, or maybe a quick meal that's not so good for us. But it sure tastes good going down, right? We invest in the things that we love, but investing in kingdom is a guarantee of a return. Every time, God is faithful in this. Malachi 3:10 says, "Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, so there may be meat in my house." Now listen, I know back in the Old Testament, that tithe was so that there would be things for the sacrifice and so that there would be food there. I understand that. But in our modern day culture, we would have to equate that with money because many of us simply don't have the cows and the sheep and the doves to bring to the priest. And neither would the priest know what to do with it. Our modern day currency has to be translated from the Old Testament to the New Testament. But here's what God says about it. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me no herewith, saith the Lord of hosts. Now I'm reading King James Version, and a lot of you may not understand that, but he says to prove me. Prove me. Remember, in all the rest of the Bible, God says, don't test me. But in this one thing, he says, prove me. And he says, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, that there will not be room enough to receive it. God says, test me. I know what some of you are saying because I've been there too. I've been there 100%. I know exactly what you're saying if you're saying this. Well, I've tithed and I haven't received a blessing like that. Can I share a hard truth with you? When I moved to Tennessee after selling my mobile home, we continued to tithe. I continued to sow. And I forgot one very practical principle that goes along with tithing. What you respect, you attract. What you respect, you attract. Just because you love prosperity doesn't mean it's going to come to you. You must respect it. You know, we got jobs, we made enough money, and because we were making money, we made foolish and unwise decisions on how to invest the money, often in things that just gave us pleasure. Gotta respect it. You have to learn about money. You have to learn how to handle it. God will bring it to you. But if you don't know how to handle it, it's going to flee straight through your fingers. It's just going to go. You must respect what you want to attract. And then the other side of that is, well, what if I do respect it? What if I have respected it? What if it's just not coming? You know, I want you to take a look at Joseph. Joseph had a dream. He had a word from God in his dream. He was made a promise. Joseph ended up being despised by his brothers. He was sold into slavery. He was cast into jail. And then after all those years, he was brought to the palace. But it happened. Sometimes your season is a little longer. Sometimes your planting season is a little longer than everyone else's, but it's because God has something for you that takes a little time. You know what Joseph never did? He never gave up the faith in the word of the Lord over his life. Not once. He held it. He knew God was going to do something in his life. He knew that dream would come true. He did not grow weary in his well-doing. He was faithful to the master. He never doubted. And that's a hard season to go through, is one where you don't doubt, one where you have that difficulty, one where people, I don't know, people think you're kind of crazy for clinging to it, but you won't regret it. Stay strong, persevere, you'll get through it. Or how about this? Here's the other group. We're talking about tithing and expecting the windows of heaven to open. Here's the other group. People from my church have come to me and said, I don't like to tithe because I worry about my finances. I can't pay all of my bills. This is hard for me because I understand being in that place. I know being in that place. There was one young lady, I told her, I said, you know, if you're worried, if every time you drop your offering envelope into the bucket, stop tithing. I don't want you to give out of manipulation. I don't want you to give out of fear. I don't want you to give out of guilt. Just stop. But you know what she told me? She came back to me and she said, you know, even though I've stopped, I still worry. I still worry. I worry all the time. And so after much prayer, she started giving. Not a full tithe all at once, but she worked her way up. God loves a cheerful giver. He pays attention to that. One of the hardest things I have had to learn in ministry is to receive an offering from someone who did not have money to give. That is one of the hardest things. See, you guys, when you're congregants, when you're followers, when you go to a church and you put your offering in that, I don't think anyone ever thinks of it in terms of it's a very humbling experience to be the receiver of that offering. It's a very humbling experience. And if you're right with God, and if you love the person of Jesus, and if you have a good relationship with him, and you're called to be a minister and you are the receiver, there is nothing in you that wants to abuse that seed in any way, shape, or form. I spend more time praying over those who sow seed into my ministry than I do praying for myself sometimes. I want to see God do miracles in people's lives. I know he can. He's done miracle after miracle after miracle in my life. And I want him to show up. But I tell you, there was something interesting that I read in the Bible about 3 years ago. And it struck me and it brought back a flood of memories. But let me read this to you. It is found in Matthew 12:41-44. And it said this: "And Jesus sat over against the treasury and beheld how the people cast money into the treasury." Let me pause for a minute, because I find it interesting that we try to say that giving is an Old Testament law. And yet here Jesus was, who, in my opinion, did not pay attention to a great many things. But he paid attention to people who were giving into the treasury of the temple. He watched them. How awkward would that be? Can you imagine someone who's a great spiritual leader watching everybody drop their seed into the bucket as it goes by? Can you imagine that? Insane. That would be like no pressure there, right? But that's what he was doing. He was hanging out by the treasury, watching how the people cast money into it. And many that were rich cast in much. And then there came a certain poor widow, and she threw in 2 mites. I don't know if you know. If you were partners with me 3 years ago, you got sent these. These are 2 mites. These are replicas of the mites back in the day. Small little penny-like things. She threw in 2 mites, which makes a farthing. And he called unto him his disciples. Jesus called his disciples. I'm pretty sure they were like, Jesus, you watch the people put the money in, but we're going to go stand over here because that's just awkward. But Jesus called them over, and he said to them, Verily I say unto you that this poor widow hath cast more in than all they which have cast into the treasury. For all they did cast in their abundance, but she of her want did cast in all that she had, even her living. He saw her. I believe she was sold out. She loved God with all of her heart. The one lady who had an excuse not to give it all, because the church is commanded to take care of the widows and orphans. The one lady who had an excuse, she put the most in. And Jesus did not say, don't do that. Take care of yourself. Can I give you something? You know why? Because Jesus knew her faith would take her further than anything he could give her at that moment that was material. God is a faith God. He responds to your faith. So I want to give you the opportunity tonight. I want to give you the opportunity. I don't do this. I really feel convicted because over the past year, I have not given anyone, all of the wisdom talks that I've done, all of the newsletters I've sent out, I have not given anyone the opportunity to sow a seed. And I believe in it. I believe in this. Let me tell you, when my husband had a heart attack on November 12th of 2020, I thought I had mailed my spiritual father the tithe that week. And when I found it sitting on my desk 3 weeks later, I was like, enemy, because that's what I call the devil. I'm like, you're trying to delay my harvest. And I wrote another check and gave twice as much because I wanted to kick the enemy in the teeth. And when everyone said my husband was going to die, he made it. He lived. I believe in sowing the seed. I sowed a substantial seed into my spiritual father on Father's Day, this past Father's Day. And 1 week later, I received a call from a very important Christian leader. Her name was Vicki Bradley. And that's when I was invited to do a taping of a very prominent show on the Word Network. It reaches 93 million homes. That opportunity opened up for me. This week, I sowed a seed into a colleague, a friend of mine, a full-time ministry friend. I noticed the anointing and the message that he carried. I wanted to have it. I wanted to get the impartation from that, and I sowed into him. And he was so reluctant to receive it because he knows I'm a widow with a limited income right now. It's not going to be like that forever. God is taking me through a season too, so I understand. But I'm not going to let that stop me. I know the principle of sowing and reaping. And I sowed into him and I said, I want that. I want the impartation of your message and your anointing. I want that. I know what it takes to walk in faith. I don't shrink back when it comes to walking in faith because my God, he's faithful. He knows. He sees. He pays attention. And he's a good God. He's so good. So I want to give you the opportunity to sow a seed tonight. We have Cash App. You can sow a seed at Cash App. If you would rather sow a seed via the mail, write a check. Some people send cash. This is our address. This is our address. I'm not going to take this lightly anymore because I can see where this past week, this past month, the devil has tried to steal from each and every one of us. Each and every Christ follower he's tried to steal from, and it's just not going to happen. If you want to sow with PayPal, that's our email address. When you sow into Purpose International, I want to hear your testimony. I want to know what happens. So please don't plan on just sowing. I want you to sow the seed. I want you to tell me what you're praying for, and I want to agree with you for it. And then I want to hear about your harvest. And we're going to brag about it here on Wisdom Talk. We are not going to let the enemy deceive us into thinking there's nothing to this principle. We're going to activate our faith and we're going to do it. Let's greet some people who are joining us. Just see what everyone has to say. But we are so grateful that you are watching tonight. I know it's been different because I know that I normally call your name. I read your comments as they come in. But I wanted to stay focused tonight, and that's probably how we will go a lot of times on our things. But finances, the person versus principles. Wow, that's a great revelation for me. Thanks for sharing this. You're so welcome. It's an ages-old teaching, and it has been invaluable to me in my life. And I'm glad that it ministered to you. I'm so glad that it ministered to you. Let's see what else. What you respect, you attract. A lot of people don't realize this, and it trips us up every time. But Thank you. Thank you for writing that down. That is absolutely correct. Um, it is an extremely difficult season to endure when you have to go through financial hardship. And when you have to do it long term, it is an extremely difficult season to endure. But you know what? God is faithful and He's going to bring you through. I just thought many times that my season would never end, that my season would never resolve, but He is faithful. And it does happen. It does happen. I'm so grateful for Him. So, and that's right, Ellen. The enemy's attacks are unacceptable. We're not going to let him take this away from us. We're not going to let our belief system to be changed by one person's word. We're going to believe and we're going to see God work in this mightily. I want to thank you tonight for joining me and for coming here. You could have done any number of things here on a Friday night, but you chose to be here with me. And I greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much for watching tonight. If this ministered to you on any level, it will minister to your friends and family as well. So please share this video. Share, like, comment, give me feedback. I would greatly appreciate knowing what you think about this. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.